pressing any buttons. I mean, if we go live now, it's not the end of the world, not like,
No.
half an hour ago.
I've got the thing open so I can.
Oh, wait, do we need to do another chat? Oops.
Seems like we've gone live.
There we are.
Have we? Oh,
Yep.
well, I've just. Oh!
Yeah, we're up.
So we're live, looks
Yes.
like. That's a new link, is it? I
Yep.
hope. Okay, so, well, hello, welcome. Sorry, I wasn't. I am just going to myself, put myself on mute. Okay, well, we're live. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, and Thomas is about to join us now. Well, this
Maybe
is a
let
great
him know
start.
he's joining into a live.
Please do not swear.
Well, hello everyone. We started a little bit earlier. Oh no, Thomas is gone. I think well, look, we'll get started. We'll let Thomas in when he's ready. Hello everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the apparently live episode. Whose idea was this to go live? Oh my lord. Why are we doing this live? I don't know why, but apologies in advance if and when things go wrong, because I'm sure something, well, hopefully not too bad. But Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us live, thank you. Happy New Year. If you're watching us afterwards, thank you for joining us as well. If you're listening to this on the podcast, again, thank you. Happy New Year. And if this is your first time watching us or listening to us, again, I'm so sorry. Hopefully things will go smoothly the next couple of hours or so. We will be going through our top 10 adventure games of 2024. But first of all, I'll introduce the team. So, first of all, hello, Laura Kress. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yes. Hello, Shorsha.
Hello, great to
Nice to
join
be
us. Thanks for being here. Hello, Kieran Child. How are you? Happy New Year.
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm doing very well. Very excited for my first live episode.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. Now, Thomas has joined us. Thomas, you are live. I'm sorry, you are live. Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm very, very happy that I'm alive. Yes.
You're alive, yes. As are we all. Yes, we went live a little bit earlier than expected, but anyway, we'll just keep going with it. So thank you for joining us. Matt Latham, hello. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
No worries. And Johnny Nice, the nicest man in the adventure game community. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Shorsha, glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, this is the first time that all six of us, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, six of us are all here together at one time for this special celebratory episode. So, as I mentioned, usually before the last few years, we have been doing our own personal top three, which turned out to be our top 10. But there's a lot of us, so we've managed to put our personal top 10 and managed to come up with a podcast top 10 adventure games of 2024 that we will be going through. We will also be going through different categories. So our best VR adventure game of 2024, best adventure game remake, because there's a few of those, best visual novel, and best adventure game DLC. So we'll also be doing some honorable mentions. So first of all, did you guys have a good Christmas? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Imagine if we didn't.
Oh well. Well,
It was awful.
Yeah.
Well, I had a great one. Did I tell you guys that Bonnie Tyler showed up in our town? No.
Oh, that's quite random.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be nice to her, so I offered her just chocolates, quality sweets. What I had, and you know what she told me?
No, Shorsha. I can sense a joke coming.
Yes, I would like to appear on this podcast. Thank you.
Yes, well, we should get her on. No, she said, "Oh, don't worry, Shorsha. I'm holding out for a hero."
No.
You know the hero chocolates.
Awful.
And that's the viewing number dropping
Yeah,
down.
so I think we've turned everyone away. Thank you for joining us. Okay, no, we'll get started. I just wanted to settle the nerves, since we're alive. And oh, there you are, Thomas. Hey. He's alive. He lives.
I'm
Yay.
live. I have visual. Wow.
Wow, first time we've seen
Oh,
you in
and
over a
it's
year.
gone.
Oh,
Oh,
And he was lucky enough to miss the joke as well.
Oh yeah, that's the
oh,
best.
I'll have to tell it again.
Nope.
there it
Okay,
is.
let's get started. And Matt, I believe you will be checking or we'll all be checking the comments. But Matt, you have taken upon yourself to check the comments, I believe.
Yes, I will be keeping an eye on the chat. So if anyone's watching us or wants to kind of contribute, like comment on the games that you may or may not have played, feel free.
Yes.
And if I'm paying attention, I will bring them up.
Yes, please let us know what your favorite adventure games of last year were, and if you've got anything to contribute, please be nice. But anything positive to contribute. What are your favorite games, or any questions for us, or anything? Let us go through the honorable mentions first of all, shall we? Who wants to start? So, Matt, you played a game that you reviewed on the podcast. It was quite short, but it made an impact on you. So tell us, what is this game? And well, very quickly, I'm guessing. I think this game was shorter than Christopher Guest's speech at the Game Awards a couple of years ago, but it's still had an impact on you. So tell us, what is the game, and why did you like it so much?
Yes, I picked the protagonist as my honorable mention. Pretty much a kind of dialogue 'em up, where you play the NPCs, um, interacting with a player character, and you pretty much, depending on the information that you give the protagonist, you can kind of change the outcome of his adventure. And it is very short. First playthrough took me 4 minutes, and I got 100% of the achievements at like within under half an hour. But the animation is lovely. The writing was very sharp and stuff. And if anything, it seems to be more a kind of like spec demonstration of the kind of things that the team behind the game, whose name has just suddenly blanked. So I apologize if you're watching this.
Not to
Um,
worry.
yeah, I think it's more or less kind of a kind of hello. This is what we might be capable of, and this is our introduction to this genre. So I think it's pretty much a nice kind of introduction to what this team can do, as well as being like a nice way to spend a lunch break or half a lunch break even.
Apparently, their name is College Fun Games. So
College fun
there you
game,
go.
yes. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. Yeah, so it was. I remember you saying it was a very short game, but I love the. It seems a very original idea, and I need to check it out myself. But delighted that you enjoyed it so much. So that is the protagonist, where you don't control the protagonist himself, but you direct him along. So thank you, Matt. So now the next honorable mention, Laura. I believe in this game you were washing your mouth. What is this game? And you haven't reviewed this on the podcast.
No, I
I don't think
haven't.
so. So what is this game? What's the name of it, and why did you like it so much?
Well, yeah, here's my honorable mention. And what a surprise. It's called Mouthwashing, as Shorsha alluded to. It's quite a dark game, this. It's kind of a horror game, but I think it does can be in the adventure game category because of the story. It's really kind of like a sort of visual novel, but there are some mini game elements, and it's basically about you're a crew on a ship. You crash land because of something that happens within the cockpit. The captain appears to have gone mad and crashed the ship, and you're waiting to be picked up basically, and it flashes backwards and forwards between different sort of parts of the story as you try to piece together what exactly happened. And the reason it's called mouthwashing is they discover that the cargo that they're holding is mouthwash. And as they start to slowly kind of lose their minds and they've got less and less food, they start to drink this mouthwash because it's got alcohol in it. So they also kind of start to lose their minds that way. I just thought it was a really unique story. It was really interesting. I was told really well. It was very cinematic. The clearly thought a lot about all the kind of editing, and it felt like a really interesting story. And I was really intrigued as to where it was going to go. And it goes some dark places, but yeah, just a really interesting story, and quite gruesome, but really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I'm guessing this would have been on our top 10 list if more of us had played it. Because I've seen I've read about it, and it does sound fantastic, but I didn't get a chance to play it. Yeah, it's a short enough game, I believe, is it? It's not
Yeah, I think it took me probably about 4 or 5 hours, and some of the bits
okay.
were I will say a little bit of the platforming, or not platforming actually. It's more kind of there are some sort of mini game elements where you're in a certain room and you've got to find a certain thing, or something's kind of chasing you, and some of those were a little bit fiddly, but for the most part, it's more about the story. So it might take you a bit longer depending how long those bits take you. But I think it was the story for me that kind of drove it on and made me want to keep going. And that's by Wrong Organ, I should say.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm
No.
excited to see what they do next because it was really good.
Oh, that's great. That is mouth washing. Thank you for that, Laura. And so then next for the third honorable mention, Johnny, farewell, North. That's the no, you're still here, but you played Farewell North, I believe.
I did, yes.
You
Farewell North.
reviewed this on the podcast, but tell us why you love this so much.
Well, Farewell North was actually number 3 on my personal top 10, and I really love this game because it's the only game in a long time that actually succeeded in making me cry. It's a third-person exploration game, or I should say a third doggy exploration game, because you play as a border collie who travels to the Orkney Islands, or, well, an imaginary version of the Orkney Islands. And it has been devoid of all color. And it's your job to bring color back to the islands by reliving the memories of your master, who is there on a personal quest, a personal journey. And it's filled with all kinds of puzzles where you have to find your way through the landscape because your path is blocked by a lot of things, and there are a couple of mini games where you have to herd sheep together, and it's really a very cozy, relaxing game, very slow game. But what I liked about it is it's all about emotions. It's about saying goodbye, about loss, of making peace with the past, and it's an amazing game made by Kyle Banks. And at first, I wasn't really into it the first half hour or so, but then when the story really came to the forefront, it just blew me out of my seat. It's I can really recommend it to everybody, and certainly people who are dog lovers.
Oh, thank you, Johnny. Yes, no, I remember you gave it a very positive review when you reviewed it on the podcast, and I know that again. I think if any of the rest of us had played it, it probably would have made our top 10 because
I really hope so. Yeah.
I'm guessing it. We would have loved it as well. It looks fantastic. I wanted to play it, but just never got around to it. But it seems very original as well, and again, very positive as well. Well, you said it made you cry, and so I don't know how positive, but but yeah. So Farewell North is honorable mention number 3. So thank you guys. There's still plenty more games to come. I know, Matt, you were putting the titles of all the games we're mentioning. Thank you for that, for your heroic work. And hello,
Anytime.
everybody in the chat. D-Book, oh, yes, D-Book Magazine. Hello. They're a fantastic magazine, by the way. I've read a few of their issues as well, and they did a feature on Broken Sword. A number of adventure and indie games is what they specialize in. So I would really encourage people to check out that magazine. I love that magazine myself. And everyone else, Kappa Tube, howdy. Keel Corwin, hello, hooray. So thank you for joining us, everyone. So now shall we get to the categories before we get to the top 10 adventure games? There are 4 different categories. Just to give a shout out to these 4 adventure games that, I thought were fantastic and deserved a mention. The first one is the Adventure Game Podcast Best VR Adventure Game of 2024. As I mentioned before on this podcast, I got a MetaQuest 2 earlier this year. Well, my fiance got it for my birthday, so very nice gift. I think she just got it so I could shut up about it. And I've played a few adventure games as well. I will be uploading my interview with Evan Jones, the developer of Broken Spectre, who he was the one who convinced me to get MetaQuest. So we'll be hearing more about that game in the coming year, very, very soon, in the next few weeks. But there were two adventure games that I played that were released this year on VR. The Pirate Queen, The Forgotten Legend with Lucy Liu is fantastic, a fantastic cinematic adventure game. But my best VR adventure game that was released this year, last year, 2024, is Retropolis 2, Never Say Goodbye. I'll be giving a full review of this game in the next review episode, but it is absolutely fantastic. They have improved upon the first one. And again, if people think that it's not possible to have good point and click adventure games with puzzles on VR, I would say check this game out. It's the puzzles are more challenging than the last game. The story is really good. There is a handy link to a walkthrough in the VR, so you don't need to take off your headset if you are stuck. But the puzzles are logical, even if they are a little bit difficult. At times, although some people will probably breeze through it. The voice acting is fantastic as always. It's a little bit more serious than last time. It's kind of like, the Empire Strikes Back. It goes a little bit darker, but still very funny. And it looks gorgeous as well. It's a, proper detective game as well. There's some detective puzzles that you have to do as well. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, I would encourage people to check it. If you do have a VR headset and particularly a MetaQuest, I would absolutely recommend, well, the two games, The Secret of Retropolis, the first one, and Retropolis 2, Never Say Goodbye. So that was the Adventure Game Podcast VR Adventure Game of the Year. So congratulations to the developers, who I believe are Peanut Buttons. Well, you can check them out. So great job to those. There's also a few adventure game remakes that were released in 2024. There was a Sam & Max remake, which I don't believe any of us have played yet. I have it on my PS5. I know, Thomas, you played Riven remake, which I know you said that, people who love Riven will probably enjoy it. Do you want to just mention very, very briefly about it? I know you reviewed it, but just to tell us what you thought very, very briefly.
They basically just gave Riven an update and added a lot of puzzles and scenes to it. And but they unfortunately had to remove the FMV stuff because that was not able to upscale it. So they did that differently. But other than that, if you love those kind of games, then this was just as great, or maybe even better, because of the added content as the original game. Unfortunately, it wasn't for me. So I would still definitely recommend, highly recommend even this game if this is your type of game. Kieran will probably love it. But yeah, it wasn't the game for me.
I think that's fair, but I think we have gone on record to say that the Myst games aren't for us. It doesn't mean they're bad games. We also have people who enjoy the Myst games. Kieran, we have mentioned. Have you played Riven Remake or Riven the original?
I've not played the remake. Yeah, I played the original. And yeah, I've been interested in the remake certainly. Yeah, it looked pretty good, and the small inclusions of little extra areas which weren't there before as well. It's just a really nice touch. It shows they've really got an affection. Well, yeah, they've really respected the original vision pretty well.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm curious. So I've played the original. I'm curious how they've dealt with the FMV. Are they reshot it? Is it CGI?
No, it's 3D models.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they just redid it in 3D models. Everything, every scene they redid. Yeah. And of course, the FMV stuff was very charming. So that would be the only downgrade, I would say, from the original. But since it wasn't technically possible to get that stuff over, then they did the next best thing. So
yes, we've already been told that someone will hear no slander towards Myst and Riven, and that's from Francisco Gonzalez from Goodness Love Games.
Yes, hello, Grundislav Games, Francisco Gonzalez, who said, I played Mist and Riven both for the first time last year, and I enjoyed them both, and I will hear no slander against them. So,
I
yes,
think you'll hear endless slander against him at the Amazing Games podcast, I'm afraid.
no, but to be fair, I think Thomas's point of view is perfectly fair. He said, like, you're not criticizing the game itself. You're just saying it's not a game for you. It's, the puzzles are very difficult. I only played the original Myst a number of years ago. I played for about 5, 10 minutes and gave up. But I've heard from a lot of people who love those games. So I think, they deserve a shout out as well. So we're getting new people in as well. Zona Verde and Aruma Studios, yes, they've got a new game coming up, Shadows of the Afterland, which looks fantastic. I'm part of their newsletter as well, so I'd encourage people to check it out. And Coco 676 and Zona Verde, I think I've mentioned as well. But anyway, so the actual adventure game remake of the year should come as no surprise. As you can see, can you see what the jumper I am wearing? Well,
Yeah.
sorry. I think you can probably tell. George Stobart. It is, yes, it is Broken Sword, Shadows of the Templars, Reforged. Now, I didn't actually play this game yet. The reason was because my fiance wanted to play it, and this is the only adventure game that she has played all the way through. Now, I watched her play most of it, and I think I can safely say that, yeah, it is the adventure game remake of the year. It is absolutely fantastic. It is, I think, the game that Charles Cecil wanted to make about 30 odd years ago now. The original, first of all, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's in glorious HD, the new screens, as we've spoken about, and I spoke to him at Reboot. You can check out on our YouTube channel that interview that I did with him where he spoke in more detail. That yes, it was done with AI, but not generative AI, and they did use it. They would just take from their own games as well, and then they repainted over it. So they did use artists to repaint over it. And then the gameplay, the story is basically practically the same as before, but with a few updates. There is the option to have hints, or you can play it in classic mode. And so my fiance did play it with hints when she got stuck, which was a few times, but she was able to get on with it. And you can also choose how often you want the hints to come up. So often or not very often, or how often as well. She did get stuck at the goat puzzle, even with hints. She did throw the controller at me. We played on her PS5. So I did have to help her with that. And there was another place, I think, when with Nico, you need her to distract a painter, but then before that, she says something like, "Oh, don't call me." So those were the kind of little things, but it is absolutely fantastic. I think what I saw my fiance, also called Elaine, by the way, really, really enjoy. So it's not just nostalgia. It is a genuinely great game. She was laughing at the dialogue. The dialogue is absolutely hilarious. The puzzles I thought were, well, again, probably even give puzzles, but I think you can just show different objects again to get some funny responses. The story is fantastic. They still use the original voiceovers, the voice actors. I think the sound, you can tell it was recorded in 1996. They did update the sound, but the sound quality is probably one of the weakest parts of the adventure of the remake. But it's fine. And if you do love Broken Sword, if you have, I'm guessing a lot of people watching this have played it, but I would still recommend that people check out the remake, because this is, from what I've seen and the little bit that I've played, is the way that Charles Cecil had intended the game to be back when he released it. And yeah, I'll be playing the physical release. I'm still waiting for the physical release from the Kickstarter. So yeah, the best adventure game remake goes to Broken Sword Reforged. Now the third category is best visual novel, and I know that there is this conversation people have is a visual novel an adventure game, and I think it depends. But with this particular game, I wanted to give a shout out to it. I would consider an adventure game, but just in case, I wanted to put it in a separate category. And the best visual novel of 2024 goes to Vampire Therapist. And we actually have a video from the developer and lead voice actor, Cyrus Namati, of Vampire Therapist. So if all goes well, here is a video of Cyrus Namati accepting his award.
My name is Cyrus Namati, Creative Director at Little Bat Games, and I am proud to accept the 2024 AGP Best Visual Novel Award for Vampire Therapist. I have been an adventure gamer all my life. First game I ever played, I believe, was Loom, and ever since then, I was so into the cinematic potential of this game genre. My first jobs in games were as a voice actor, and I probably worked with a lot of you on your games. And now I get to make my own, and I've been nothing but grateful to have such a welcoming community to be a part of. We got plenty in store here at Little Bat Games. We have our expansion for Vampire Therapist coming out in just a few weeks called Couples Therapy, where you'll be helping 2 vampires at once. And we have a new project in the works that I'll be excited to talk about soon. But, we can't stop making games regardless of what the industry is like. So I'm going to keep doing it, and I know I'm going to see all of you again. So thank you for your recognition, and thank you for all your support. I'll see you next time.
So that was Cyrus Nemati, lead developer of Vampire Therapist. I don't know if he's here. Cyrus, if you are in the live chat, feel free to say hello.
I think he is, yes.
And
there,
yes, there he is. Cyrus Nemati has.
Yes.
So if you have any questions for him, please feel free to put it in there or say hello. Congratulations to Cyrus Nemati. I love Vampire Therapist. I reviewed it on the podcast. It's and it is fantastic. Now, it is not. It's not a replacement for therapy, but absolutely not. But it is about therapy. But it did.
Thanks for that, Shorsha. It's good to.
The reason I'm
good to
saying it
mention.
is because it has helped me actually a little bit. It did feel kind of a bit like therapy, but it's not a replacement. Okay,
So for
just...
people who haven't played this, are you a vampire therapist?
Yes, sorry,
Right,
you are
okay.
a therapist. You are a vampire, and you go to Germany, and you've seen a lot of crap, and you've done a lot of crap, and so you meet this 1,000-year-old vampire and become a therapist. So you help different vampires because vampires have seen a lot over the years, and so you help them get through their issues. Now Cyrus can help me now. Cognitive distortions, which I've been using now in real life. That, for example, mind reading. For example, I'm not going to say such a thing to such a person because they will react this way. Well, we don't know unless we try it. And it looks beautiful. It's very dialogue driven, but the dialogue is fantastic. And the characters are fantastic, very relatable, even though they're vampires. There is a Twitch streamer who's under pressure. She just her fans and followers are constantly putting her under pressure to put up content, not necessarily maybe content that she wants to put up, but she feels constantly under pressure to do that. There's an actor who's literally from Shakespearean times who might not have gone with the times, but yeah, no, Vampire Therapist, I would absolutely urge you, even if you don't usually play Vampire Therapist, if you don't usually play visual novels, I would recommend that people check this game out because I loved it. So congratulations to Cyrus and the entire team at Little Bat Studios for the fantastic game. And yeah, looking forward. There are some DLCs as well that they've released, and I think 1 or 2 more coming up that are free actually, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they are to come with the game. And so yeah, looking forward to seeing what they do next. So congratulations, Cyrus. Yeah. So anyway, so that is Vampire Therapist. And now, the final category before we get to our top 10, this is our best adventure game DLC. Speaking of DLCs, and again, there might be some talk, is this game an adventure game? Well, I think it is. It is genuinely one of my favorite games of all time. And actually, instead of a video, we've invited the developer of the game. It is Suzerain, Kingdom of Ritzia. That was released this year, and we have the developer. I believe he's coming up now. Atta, if you can hear, hello, Atta,
hello.
Can you hear us?
Hey, can you hear me? I can hear you guys.
Yes, we can.
Whoa, well,
Hey.
hello, Atta. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Doing fine. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Happy New Year. Hope you had a happy Christmas. Now, unfortunately, we only have you for a few minutes this time because we have a top 10 to get through, but I wanted to invite you because I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, if that's okay. I played Suzerain Kingdom of Ritzia. Now, we played the original. I believe myself, Matt and Thomas, we all played the original Suzerain. I played it twice. And again, absolutely fantastic. And in Kingdom of Ritzia, you play as a king of Ritzia. And first of all, it looks similar, But then there's some key differences. So instead of being president and in a democratic country, you are the king. So you have more power, shall we say. You can do some royal decrees, but it can still be a bit challenging. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. Basically, all of my desires of power and fantasy of being king was in this game. And also, what is different to Suzerain is the war part. I declared war on this other territory, and I was telling the guys before recording that it didn't go well. You know, everyone telling me don't do it. I did, and that territory, and I was, of course, you can choose whether to be in charge of the troops and make the decisions, so it becomes strategy. But they ended up invading Ritzia, and the leader was telling me, please stop this pointless war. What are you doing? And eventually I did, and it was a complete humiliation, but I loved it. And there's so many different choices, and there are choices upon choices. It's also fantastically written, fantastic characters, but also the world building. I spent 4 hours just reading about the world, the characters, the political organization, the countries before I started playing the game. And there's a documentary on the game, on the world of the game, which is just a prologue, which is about 1 hour and a half. So, Atta, I will let you talk a little bit now. Congratulations. But first of all, do you have, well, what do you have any reaction to that? Is there anything that I said incorrect or anything? Apologies if it was.
I mean, thanks for the amazing intro. Like, really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for the award. Means a lot to the team here. Very, very much happy that we got to have this. Shout out to our writers, Rachel Glassberg, Adam Sharp, Ilke Karademir, and everybody else who chipped in to help. So and everybody else who supported the production of the DLC. It was like a gargantuan effort, to be honest. It's a lot on top of Suzerain, but that was essentially what we tried to do. And the things you mentioned are like kind of at the core of what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk a bit about absolute power, about how that changes your behavior, whereas there's more checks in Swordland in the base game. In the DLC, there's just different conditions that we wanted to explore from a narrative perspective and maintain that like very branching content that we love to build and talk about war as well, as there are more wars in our world these days. So we wanted
Unfortunately, yes.
that we cover a bit of that and get into those topics. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, our goal with our company and our games is to explore reality through storytelling and through these experiences. So we want to make them as, in a way, fictional, but also real as possible, and make sure that people really find their own values within these experiences.
Yeah, no, it's I mean both games are fantastic. And the DLC, I should add, it was just as long, if not longer, as the first game. At least for me. Now I took my time with it. Also, now I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but choices that you make in the original Suzerain, do they have an effect in the DLC then? When you
Yes.
play the DLC?
That is correct.
I mean, that's just incredible development on a technical level.
We built we did a pre-update to Suzerain 2023 called the 2.0 update, which we've implemented Rizia content in already before having announced the DLC. And that was all in preparation with the design and the choices that would then link with the launch of the DLC and the content. And we're actually going to continue this. So our next DLC will take all the choices from the previous two experiences and then build on that. And we're also doing contradictory designs, so which means that it's not always that you're benefiting from your previous choices. Sometimes your previous choices will also negatively impact your latest runs and the latest content. So we plan to make this holistic universe experience. So as you play, you get a lot of these ripple effects, and a lot of the characters are being unraveled from like different perspectives. So you really go deeper and deeper and deeper, and this universe just becomes more real.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Does anybody else have questions for Ari? I don't want to just take over or in the chat
Yeah,
while he's here.
do.
Thomas.
I was wondering, are you going to continue to expand on the existing Suzerain universe, or are you planning on doing something different?
We're gonna stay with the universe. So our audience has grown quite a bit, and there's more demand of stuff inside of our universe. We've seen that we can actually do something what we call kind of genre mixing, or a bit of like experimentation of subgenres within the genre, which allows us to attract different audiences as well. For example, Rizia's audience is like, I think the active audience is about 60% strategy players. And it's kind of interesting from what we surveyed. Whereas like Swordland is a bit more different because it has a slightly different feature set, but overall the audience is still there and we have a very high attach rate. So we want to kind of build on this universe, expand to other countries, expand to other government systems and like different topics that we didn't talk about, that kind of, make our actual lives challenging in the real world. Yeah, so we want to build more. And actually, we also have a prequel that we are slowly building up, which is called The Conformist. It's a prequel to Suzerain. It's a semi-sandbox 3D RPG game where you actually are a propagandist walking inside the city trying to win an election. So we are going basically everywhere we can within the universe, within our means, of course. We're still not a massive company, so we're a bunch of 10, 15 people who are like actively working on it. So yeah, that's kind of like the long answer to that.
Well, it
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
Amazing,
think
yeah.
the universe, it's not sci-fi. It's kind of, Star Wars, that you can have stories within this world, within this universe, and even different styles. You mentioned the conformist. So it's different to Suzerain and Kingdom of Ritzy, I believe. Is it that you're actually in the world you mentioned?
Yes, that is true. Like you can traverse the city, you can interact with the characters. A lot of the suzerain's characters will be 20 years younger because it is 20 years before that game. So you will understand how the political world formed, the organizations, the parties, how Seoul came to be, and all the other characters that you deal with in Suzerain. So we want to kind of go to the past to explore the present way better. Also, it's our mainstream appeal. We want to attract a larger role-playing RPG audience with the 3D visuals and like the bit more approachable gameplay, without losing the core of what makes our game special, which is branching narrative, societal and political themes, and just emotional content.
Yeah, no, you mentioned RPG, and again, that's why, it's like, is it an adventure game? I mean, I think it is kind of, it can be different things, it's a narrative RPG, but there are adventure game mechanics, with the choice, it's an interactive fiction from what I saw, but yeah, no, huge congratulations. And do you have I know it's still very early, but do you have any release frame for The Conformist?
Not yet. We're
No,
trying
that's
we're
perfectly
trying to move
fine.
forward as fast as we can, but the games industry has been like a bit slow recently, and it's been very
Mm.
difficult to do experimental and daring projects. We've talked about this to our community as well. We want to do stuff faster and better, but it's a tough market out there right now, and a lot of game developers are, I think, feeling it. It's not being talked about much to audiences, but I like to share what's happening inside the games industry to everyone. And yeah, a lot of studios shut down, and
Mm.
we had our best year last year, so the DLC worked out, and we can continue on this plan. But it is a tough world out there, so we're doing our best. And we also wish luck to everyone who makes all these amazing games happen. And one small comment on that is we also want to explore this whole different genres and different explorations of game mechanics and systems, and kind of bring different audiences together in a new way and create new subgenres. So that's something that we are going a bit in the non-traditional path on that design. So I'd love to have more discussions on that, and our audience is also basically living it through our experiences. So it's
Is
super interesting.
So I'm assuming that the equivalent of that would be, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe doing a heist movie and then doing like a sitcom, and you
That's what I
kind
was
of
thinking as well.
so
Yeah.
you kind of want to say, okay, let's move away from the visual novel aspect. I don't know, like could we expect a first person shooter set in like the Tarquin Uprising or something like that?
I mean, I think first off, we would be around the adjacents, which is what we're doing, the adjacent genres. We have visual novel elements, we have role playing elements, we have strategy elements, we have different things coming together under this political theme and the societal theme that we, dare to make content in. That is still our core, and the different weights of which we lean into is based on the experience that we want to deliver. So what do we want to talk about? what is the best way to deliver that? What would be the game design mechanics and genres best to deliver that experience? That's kind of like our thinking process. Eventually, though, we would love to, turn things upside down. As you've mentioned, the shooter genre is ripe for an opportunity to make a mature experience based on difficult moral choices about what conflict does to people, the PTSD, the violence. There's just so much potential to, unveil the darkness of our world through games.
I think you've crafted like I'm fascinated by kind of world building in general and stuff, and like things with vast mythology and stuff. And I think you've got you've got a universe that mirrors kind of our history, but offers a slightly alternative view in it. And I think it's a like fascinating potential that you've got. I just look forward to I look forward to when you eventually run out of genres and you have to make the rapper type game in the Suzerain universe. But
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words, and I appreciate your time. Sorry if I took a bit too much.
No,
No,
thank you.
no,
Well,
no.
No, at
well,
all.
the last question that I have before I let you go, then, Atta, because I'm sure you're a busy man, you just want to relax. I mean, you mentioned as well the potential about game genres, but what about other forms of media? Because there is another game, Unknown Awakening, that is a game, it's a novel, it's a podcast fiction series, it's an online web series. Would you be interested in Suzerain, for example, as a novel or as a podcast, audio fiction, or movie even, or would that interest you at all, or would you like to focus mainly on games
Comics.
or comics? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's potential. We are thinking about formats that are a bit shorter that we can deliver because developing these experiences does take significant time and resources, and our audience just wants more every month, every second month, every third month. So we've seen a challenge of how can we deliver this, and maybe these mediums are a way of dealing with this challenge we face, is creating content in more shorter formats and different formats and still expanding on the same universe and building up to the next bigger content release. So we're open. I mean, I've been just scribbling around some TV show ideas already, but it's
Ooh.
just ideas, and we all of us have ideas. It's the execution
Well, as
that
long as
always
you'll
is
have
the challenge.
ideas, I'm sure that good content will come.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you're
yeah.
ever
Well,
short of ideas, take a look at the Kingdom of Belgium because that's sometimes stranger than fiction.
Hey, if you're going to look at Belgium, you're going to have to look at the Netherlands as well. So
There you go.
We have
well,
one of our team members is from Belgium,
Oh, great.
so we know some Belgian lore.
oh, well, fantastic. But yeah, no, as I said, it really perfectly mirrors our world because there's some countries that think, oh, that could be like, a country like United States, but not really. And then some things, and then I think the choices, because whatever choice the player makes, it is feels like the game will just go with it. It doesn't feel like you're being now, it might not work out very well, which is what happened to me. I know Matt, you and I, we said, yeah, we messed up the economy very badly. And Thomas, I think you had a relatively successful end to your playthrough.
yeah, I was
Probably better
surprised
than
by
me.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I suffered a coup
I
in two versions that I played.
No, I
The two
managed to
games.
get reforms through, and I actually survived and stepped down because I wouldn't be able to get reelected. But it was compared to what other things I've heard, what endings you could get, I was a relatively good one.
Yeah,
That's good to hear.
Tarkin Soul screwed up my reform plans, so I have to try it again. Well,
damn
look,
you, Tarquin.
well, thank you so much, Atta. You're
Thank
free
you.
to stick around, but if you do want to, I know you're probably busy as well. Have you been playing any games yourself, or have you been busy with your own game?
I've been playing a bit more Victoria 3 and Crusader Kings.
Nice.
Getting back into the games after the updates. Other than that, yeah, I did play Vampire Therapist, so amazing game. So yeah,
Fantastic.
we're together with Cyrus. We're in Berlin, so we actually met up like a month or so back for a Christmas market.
Oh,
So amazing to see
fantastic.
that game covered as well. I really liked how it reflected into the mental topics, self-reflective experience. I liked it a lot. Yeah, just waiting for Kingdom Come Deliverance to come up soon. So that's one of the games I'm looking forward to.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, look, I'd love to meet you guys in Berlin, but I'd love to have you on the podcast again for the next
Sure.
content update, hopefully later on this year. And I'd love to have you again. But thank you so much for coming to join us, Atta. And the very, very best of luck. Delighted to hear that this year was, or last year was the best year for you guys, because it is tough for, for games and for studios like yourselves. So really, really delighted. So. I want to keep doing what you're doing because the two of them generally are two of the best games that I've played, I think.
Thank you so much.
So huge congrats to you and the team.
That's very much appreciated. And we have a massive 3.1 update coming to Rizia and some smaller new stuff to Swordland as well. So it will be the best time to pick up the DLC and play it because we have some amazing new scenes and
Oh
moments
man,
that are
I'm
coming
gonna have to play them again.
So, so keep an eye out. This year,
we kind of lost Sersha for a month there.
Yeah. Well, I was playing King Ruritzi on my holidays last year, by the pool. I was in my own world here. But no, pretty fantastic. So thank you, and look, I look forward to talking to you hopefully over the year for a longer period now, longer interview. You can tell us more about the plans and about the games as well. So congratulations out to you and the team, and a very best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much. Have a nice time. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care, Atta. Bye. Oh, no, lovely guy as well. It's great, to speak to developers and really nice people as well. So congratulations to Torpor Studios for I'm going to call it an adventure game, best adventure game DLC, Suzerain Kingdom of Ritzia. And yeah, great that he and Cyrus met up in Berlin. Shall we get to our proper top 10 adventure games now? This is, now we're getting into the meat and bones. As I mentioned, this is from all six of us. We got all our games we played, put them together, and we came up with a podcast top 10. And we're still friends. There were some discussions, but we're still friends. We haven't fallen out. And I think it's a pretty good list, but we shall see.
Well, some of us have been removed from a certain guest list, but...
What?
Oh yeah, Laura knows. Laura understands what I'm talking about.
Yes, I think. I think I do.
Never mind.
I don't...
you probably do.
Okay, well,
Search clueless, but it was about him, so.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask you afterwards.
That's okay. That's okay.
I try to be inclusive, but anyway. So, the Adventure Game Podcast top 10 that we have all included. So we have a joint top 10 so Laura, do you want to talk about what was the top 10? Because you played this game, and again, much like mouthwashing, I had never heard of it until you mentioned it. So tell us, what's the name of the game that is in top 10, and why did you like it so much?
Yeah, so this was actually in my top 3. This is my number 3 in the list. But as you said, I don't think anyone else had played it, which is fair enough. But it's Grunn, Grunn. And a part of me, I sort of was thinking, is this an adventure game? But I kind of came to the conclusion that it was because of, the mechanics of the game. Basically, you are a gardener. You've been hired to do some maintenance work over the weekend in this Dutch town. You can't speak the language. You turn up to this place. It's this old house, which is locked. You go to the shed. There's a note for you saying like, yeah, please, do maintenance over the weekend. You've got one of your tools there, but the rest of them are missing. So it seems a little bit odd. No one seems to be around. So you sort of start your work, but you've got a sense that there's something else going on. And as you explore further afield, like the nearby church, the park and things, you start to get some sense that there's another kind of story here as opposed to just gardening. And it's basically about that. It's about exploration. You're exploring this village. There's kind of a dark undertone to it. So there's a very slight horror edge to it. It's all first person, and you can do actual gardening as you find different tools. You can water the flowers, and it will add up every time you do that. You've got like certain things you've got to do. And you pick up these Polaroids, which are little snapshots, and they give you a little clue of where certain objects are hidden, so you can go on the hunt for them, or little puzzles that you have to solve. And basically the idea is you've only got 2.5 days before your kind of shift is up and potentially everything ends, but I won't give any more than that. So you've got a short amount of time to do it, and it reminded me a bit of things like Minute. I don't know if anyone played that, MINIT, where it's a certain amount of time, certain things happen at a certain amount of time, a bit like Majora's Mask, where because there's a day and night cycle, so at certain times of the day, and you can see the clock ticking on, certain things will become available. And as you get more knowledge, as you're picking up these Polaroids, and as you're playing through the game, it's quite difficult to do it all in one sitting. So it's quite hard to you pick up the game and you play through the whole thing and you finish because there's so many things to explore and discover. So you've got to like play through runs quite a little bit. And that's what I quite enjoyed because it was fun as you got more and more knowledge. You'd be like, oh, okay, actually, you sort of uncover shortcuts, and it's like you're almost kind of doing speed runs each time you're doing it because you're like, right, actually, I've got to go to this first. I've got to pick up this because if I pick up this first, then I'll be able to unlock this because there's different parts that aren't open at the beginning. So I just enjoyed that you're building your knowledge. You do sort of pick up items, so there is kind of inventory stuff. But it was just really, really clever. And I when it all locks into place, it's just really satisfying. There's an achievement on there to get all of it done within 10 minutes. And I think that's quite a challenge, but it is doable. But you wouldn't be able to do that at the beginning. And it's got a really cool visual style. It's a bit kind of I don't know how to explain it really. It's sort of like dreamlike a little bit. The colors are a bit sort of unusual, and it's quite sort of lo-fi. And yeah, you can genuinely just go back do some gardening, but otherwise it's just I just thought it was a really clever game. It's by Sock Pop Collective, who do lots and lots of cool games. I really enjoyed Frog Adventure that they did as well, but this is completely different. There's a lot of kind of weird elements to it, but it's just really good. I just really enjoyed the puzzles and working it out.
You said that was in a Dutch town? Did it say anywhere?
Yeah, so it's quite funny actually because you as the character don't speak Dutch. So when you go and this is part of the reason why I was like, is it an adventure game? Because you can't really talk to anybody because you don't understand what they say. So when you speak to there are characters, but when you try and speak to them, it just says you don't understand what they said. And so there's no real voice acting. There's kind of sound effects and things like that. But when you go and speak to people, they're just like because you don't get what they're saying. But it's
Sounds
kind
Dutch.
of yeah. So,
Double Dutch.
I've heard a few people say, oh, it does feel like a kind of Dutch village
Because
that you're in.
groen,
Yeah.
it's dialect for green.
Right. Well, that makes sense then. Okay. I did wonder why is it called that, but
Yeah.
and I don't know if potentially the developer himself, because it's Sockpot Collective, and the guy who's part of it is what's his name? Tom Vander. Oh yeah, I mean he must be Dutch. Tom Vander Bogart.
Van der Boogaard.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
He probably is
Tom
Dutch
van
with
der
that
Boogaard.
name.
Yeah, that's probably Dutch. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little bit creepy. But it's never sort of survival horror or anything like that. There can be some things that come out and kind of scare you, and
More like
you've got to
Lynchian
run away.
horror.
Yeah. But it's more about the uncovering what's going on and unlocking different parts of the map and doing it as quickly as you can, and just all these little surprises that come out of it. I just thought it was really clever.
No, well, fantastic. No, I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it. But I saw a trailer and it looks interesting. I had no idea what was going on, much like mouthwashing. But Benimation also says it's a really cool game. And Grundislav said peanut style. So well, thank you, Laura. So number 10 was Grun, Grunn. And I'm very interested in checking that out now. It sounds like Inco Studios game, the way you can repeat the playthrough as well. But yeah, so you seem to like those games as well.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was one that kind of just really I got immediately. But yeah.
No, fantastic. So that is Grun, joint number 10, and the second number 10 that same amount of points as Grun is a game that you played and reviewed, Thomas. But tell us the title of the game that is the joint number 10 and what you really liked about it.
Yeah, that is Nairi, the Rising Tide. and it is the second chapter of the Nairi games. The first one was Nairi Tower of Shirin, and I played that in 2018 when it came out, and I loved it, even though I was not expecting to love it, because it's very cutesy, but that is more like the surface. The surface is very very cutesy and got these cute characters, but there's actually a very mature and sometimes dark story going on. And in the first chapter, you end up at a certain point. I'm not going to tell anything about it, but in the second chapter, you actually pick up right after that. This time you also get to play different characters, not just Nairi herself, and you delve deeper into the mysteries of this world that is created, coincidentally also by Dutch. One of the guys is Dutch who created it. Yeah, they did a really good world building, really good, interesting writing. There's plenty of humor in there as well, and it really has its own style, on which they elaborate. They added something like crafting, which it's not like crafting like it is in Subnautica or stuff like that, but you do have to craft certain items to get through certain puzzles. And there are two areas where the puzzling gets really mist/riven like, which is basically just puzzle after puzzle. Those were the bits that I really needed a walkthrough occasion from time to time, but you can also choose to skip those parts. But I did not want to skip them because they give me a lot of background on the mythology of this, and all the legendary things that's going on of this world. So I plowed through it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope I really don't have to wait another 6 years for what I think is going to be the final chapter of this story, because it's really good story.
Yeah, I'm very curious now. I remember you reviewed this when the podcast first started 6 years ago. We're in our 7th year now, which is absolutely terrifying. But yeah, I remember times you reviewed the first game, one of the first episodes we did, and then later on, in 2024, we did this game as well. So yeah, I think what strikes me is how gorgeous the graphics are, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And you do think, oh, it's very cutesy, but you said it's dark as well. So
it is a lot
I'm
darker
very
than you
curious.
expect. Yeah, people die, and yeah, it's not as it's definitely not as cutesy as it looks. So don't let that turn you off of this very good story that is still developing onward. And they added some more collectible things and stuff as well. So that's another fun bit. You run into a few characters that you met in the first chapter as well. So yeah, it's the best thing. If you're interested in this game, I would recommend getting part 1 and 2 and just play through them after another just one big game.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Thomas. So that is Nairi Rising Tide, and it's our joint number 10. So now we're getting to number 9. And Kieran, this was a game that you played that ended up in our top 10. So tell us the name of this game. And I don't think you reviewed this game on the podcast either, if I'm correct. But anyway, tell us what you really loved about this game.
Yeah, that's right. This is Minds Beneath Us. And I think a point to note here is that yes, we've all 6 of us have contributed to this top 10. But it shows just how many brilliant adventure games came out last year that there was very little agreement. we essentially had 60 games to each of us submitting a real different selections.
We were planning on like fighting with duels with pistols at one point, just to settle arguments.
And I didn't even get to play that many new games this year. So even if I had managed to play a lot more, then the list could have been different.
Yeah. So we've just heard Grun and Nairi, which were in Laura and Thomas's top 3. So this is Minds Beneath Us, which is actually my number 1. It was my favorite game of last year, and it's by Barebone Studio. It's a dark dystopian cyberpunk sort of a interactive fiction. You play as Jason Dye, and you're going to get a job at Vision. This is a kind of scary corporate conglomerate in this futuristic Asian city, and they make money by harvesting people's brainwaves to power AI. So it's really quite a dark dystopian view of future capitalism. The game is 2D flat plane, controlled by keyboard. You move left and right and press E to interact. And almost always those interactions are in the form of dialogue with other characters. You can also click on things in the screen to get more information about them. From what I described as this corporation which is harvesting brainwaves, you might think this is really quite dark. It's quite grim. It's sort of a bit Black Mirror-y in places. And the story is just absolutely brilliant. The narrative is brilliant. I've not wanted to put it down at all. There are lots of twists, which is difficult to talk about because, of course, if I give away any of those twists, that will be a spoiler. There is one really, really effective twist that happens within the first few minutes that already just hooked me straight in, because the game immediately sets up in one direction and then pulls the rug out from underneath you, and it's something else. There are themes generally in the narrative around cloning, around AI, around mind control, around subterfuge, pretending someone you're not. So there's a lot of attention and paranoia just all throughout the game. There's both this thought of who can I trust here, who's going to be misleading me, as well as you misleading others, you trying to deceive others in multiple different ways and for multiple different reasons. You're trying to deceive the company, you're trying to deceive the government, you don't really know if you can trust your girlfriend. It's really, there's this paranoia that goes throughout the whole game, and it's reflected incredibly well in the gameplay. So almost all the gameplay is dialogue based, and the dialogue is timed, which I think is a really nice touch. You don't really revisit any dialogue. You don't talk to a character again and choose a different option. It's a huge series of one-time options. You have to pick an option. You're going to have to stick with the consequences of that option. And so you're constantly seeing, okay, there's two options here. Maybe one of them, they'll discover who I am, and so I don't want to pick that one, but maybe the other one, they won't trust me or something like this. And you might be given 10 seconds to pick, and it really keeps that tension. It really makes you feel that urgency, which is something that I've not really felt in many adventure games. You often feel quite relaxed, you feel quite laid back, able to take decisions in your own time. This achieved that urgency really, really well. There's also certain dialogue options will only unlock depending on what you've done previously. So if you built up certain trust with a certain character, you might be able to say, look, I did this earlier, can't you trust me now? And so a scene might play out a slightly different way. It doesn't rub it in your face. You get a little padlock opening, and then the padlock swooshes out the way, and there's a new dialogue option that you can pick. Every time I saw that, I was excited. It felt like, oh, I get to do something now that another player might not at this point. And so I get to see my own little unique bit of the game. The number of decisions there's a lot of decisions. They're all fairly insignificant, which I think is nice. It wasn't too ambitious in having this huge branching narrative. It's got one story that it wants to tell, but scenes can play out slightly differently based on your choices, and they feel genuine. I did make a number of choices and see the game play out differently based on those choices. It never felt like it was yanking me back to pick a different option. I sometimes deliberately picked an option which I knew was going to be absurd, and sure enough, it just sort of it cut me from a thing that it was obviously an incorrect option. Someone was going to say, okay, no, I'm not working with you then. I picked it, and sure enough, they didn't work with me. And I'm fairly sure that they would have had I not picked a really stupid option deliberately at that point to see what would happen. The total playtime is around 16 to 20 hours. It's a long game. You get a lot, and amazingly, it doesn't drag at any point. I've kept wanting to keep going. I've never wanted to put this down. There's always new stuff around the corner. There's all these twists. It's really incredible. It keeps that tension up. The world building is brilliant. The dystopia. It's just fantastic. I've really been impressed. So yeah, this is Minds Beneath Us. Amazingly, it's a debut game. It's Barebone Studio. It's their only game, and they've done brilliantly with it. There's a whole number of little cutscenes which are done cinematically and incredibly effective. Every single one is effective. The narrative, the pacing, is brilliant. Definitely check this one out.
So you liked it then?
Yes, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I really loved it.
How many hours did you put in?
So I've put in 11 hours. And as I said, I just want to carry on going. I've had so many other games to play over this break, and I've kept on thinking I want to get back and play some more Minds Beneath Us. It's really fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, I need to play it now. Sorry, Matt. Here.
I was going to say, I think as you started, and I'm looking at the Steam page. I'm like, I'm wishlisting this. This looks amazing.
Beautiful, and it sounds like the game again. You've mentioned games for it. Sounds like a game I would particularly enjoy as well. You know, sounds like a particular game that. So yeah, so that is Minds Beneath Us, and
I also checked the Steam page and I found out that I already have it in my library for some reason. So
oh, fantastic!
I think I'm going to play it.
Got no reason not to play it then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that, Kieran. So that is Minds Beneath Us. It is our number 9 adventure game of 2024. So now we go on to number 8. And at number 8, it's a game that both myself and Kieran have played. It is An English Haunting. Now, I already reviewed this on the podcast, but just very quickly, yeah, I absolutely love this game. It is set in 1907 in London, and you have to basically prove that that ghosts and supernatural exists, and there's a lot more to it. One of your colleagues has... he's basically gone missing and he's been accused of stealing money from the university. You play as a professor, and you have to go and try and find him, but also try and prove that supernatural exists, or you won't get funding for your department. It's a point-and-click adventure game. It's pixel art. It's from Postmodern Studios, who made Nightmare Frames and I think Urban Witch project. I haven't played either of those.
Urban Witch Story.
Yeah, thank you, Kieran. And I really want to play those games as well. But I loved An English. Well, first of all, the way it looks, and I mentioned this in my review that it managed to get the accents right. There's no voice acting, but you can tell that all the characters sound different. You can tell, they're Cockney, they're Irish, or they're more upper class, and you can get that from the dialogue. It's really well written. I was engaged all throughout the story. It took me about 6 or 7 hours. The puzzles, I thought there are puzzles. Most of the time, I was able to. I did need a walkthrough a couple of times, but most of the time, if you keep exploring, you'll be able to figure them out. But you did have to think, and they were all logical. And there's some cameos as well for some real life people. I think it's already mentioned. I don't want to give it away, but Houdini makes an appearance. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and several other people, and it never felt out of place to me. It never felt like, oh, here's a cameo just for the sake of it. They always felt, I think, realistic. It felt like they felt appropriate to be there. So yeah, this was high up for me. I really enjoyed it. An English Haunting. And Kieran, I believe you played it as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I've not finished it, but it's same exactly as you're saying. It's a lovely game. It looks really nice. There's a nice number of locations. You don't feel particularly constrained. They've really opened up a number of different locations, and it's fun to explore all those different locations. It's very traditional. So I think fans of traditional adventure games would enjoy this.
Yeah, and it's very funny as well. It's not a comedy, but horror and comedy can go very close together. And there's some scenes that are very funny in this game. And I mentioned in my review the editing as well. Very early on, when you're at your girlfriend's house, and her family are very rich, and she's basically dumping you, and then you're saying, "Oh, but you can't be serious." And the next scene is you're outside a door, and the door slams in your face.
Yeah, it just immediately cuts to the door slamming.
Yeah. So it is done. It's a very, very well made game. It is traditional, but again, what I loved is its own thing. There's no references to other games. It's not trying to be either a LucasArts game or Next Broken Sword or whatever. It's its own thing. It's really, really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And Grunislav Games also play. I remember Francisco tweeted about it back when Twitter wasn't as horrible. Well, anyway, but he said, I really enjoyed an English Haunting. Great atmosphere. Yeah, no, absolutely agree. So that is our number 8. Congratulations to Postmodern Studios. An English Haunting. It was higher up for me in my personal top 10 list, but for our top 10 list, it's number 8. So, well, oh, number 7. So, Johnny, you and Laura played this game that you both really enjoyed. So I know you haven't a chance to talk very up until now. So what is our number 7 adventure game of 2024?
Well, it's our number 7, but in my personal list, this was number 1. This was the winner. And why? Well, it's simple.
What's the name of it?
It's Prim by made by Common Colors. That is Jonas Fish, and it's a bit ironic, Common Colors, because it's a black and white game actually. So and for me, it's just the epitome of what I look in an adventure game. It has this classic hand-drawn graphical style, very user-friendly interface, orchestral soundtrack, great voice acting. It has loads of inventory puzzles. You have to talk with other characters. Everything that you look for in a classic adventure game, it's here in Prim, and I loved it because over the years the adventure game genre has developed so much. There are so many different subgenres, and with so many different and excellent games. Like, for instance, Chants of Sennar, Return of the Obra Dinn, that has very different gameplay than what people are probably used to seeing an adventure game is all about. So I like playing those games, but when a game comes out that kind of feels the same like those old classics from the 90s, and it's done very well, I immediately fall in love with it. And that's one of the reasons why I like this game so much.
Yeah, thank you. Laura, you also played it, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And it's funny, I've been watching this game. I backed it on Kickstarter. I remember playing the demo way back in 2019 at Gamescom at Adventure Treff. There was a little side event with Adventure Treff. They put on some adventure games, and I think I was one of the first people to play the demo. So yeah, it was really great to see this come out finally, with all the kind of promise. And yeah, I agree with Johnny. It wasn't my number 1, but I still really enjoyed playing it. It's all you kind of want in a sort of traditional point and click adventure game. It's got a lot of style, but also that interesting kind of story, unusual kind of art style as well. But yeah, I really liked the voice acting as well, was really good. So yeah, I agree with Johnny. It was if you like your traditional point and clicks, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, still need to check it out myself because I've been following the development as well. And the developer is a lovely guy as well, who we mentioned. So, but the light is in our top 10 list. It is, again, Prim, which was released earlier 2024. So thank you, Johnny and Laura. And Laura, I think that all the next few games in our top 10 list, you have played them all.
Listen, let's just say, because I had this little challenge on my Twitch channel where I had 12 games to play in a month. And I think that did help. And also then over Christmas, I was just like, right, I'm going to get down and play these games. I haven't played an English Haunting though, so I need to play
Yeah, it's impossible to play them all.
It's
really
so
many. But you still have
on an English Haunting too.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And I need to play Minds Beneath Us now after that review. But you still have your eyebrows, Laura, so I think you...
Yes, that was a forfeit for the challenge, by the way, for anyone who has no idea what Josh is talking about there.
Should have mentioned that. Should have led with that. So yeah, so if you hadn't played all the games, then you were going to shave your eyebrow. I don't know why you do this.
I don't know. They're
but
here
anyway,
yeah.
They're here, so you have managed to play. But yeah, so that game is Prim, number 7. And at number 6, it's another game that Laura played, and I played this. This was my number 1 adventure game of the year. It Still Wakes the Deep. Set in Scotland, wasn't it? A very Scottish game? No. Would you like me to do the review? No, it's Scottish for Scotland. Should I do it? Should I invite? No. Okay. Well, anyway, Still Wakes the Deep from the Chinese Room. It's a fantastic game. It was a fantastic game for horror. We've already mentioned a few horror games, but this is one of the most intense experiences I've ever had while playing a game. So basically set in the 1970s off the coast of Scotland. You are in an oil rig. You're an electrician. And it starts off with you being fired. That you find out in the game, why, that your boss really, really doesn't like you. So he tells you to get on the next helicopter back home. But then it turns out that your team is drilling too far down, and you wake up something that should probably have been left sleeping. And then all hell breaks loose in this Lovecraftian game. All through the game, and some people call this a kind of a walking simulator. I would say it's a run for your life hiding simulator, because this monster, I don't want to give or any spoilers, but you cannot kill it. It's kind of like Alien. I think it's from one of the people who made this game made Alien Isolation, and I can definitely see, because this monster is like Alien. You cannot kill it, and it's absolutely terrifying. I found it terrifying anyway. And you have to, and you have different things you have to do. First of all, try to escape, but then you can't. And then you have to, turn some valves to try and release the water. What I also liked is that other characters in the game, they're doing their own thing. You don't see them, but for example, when you have to turn a valve in one room, another character has to do it in another room that you don't see, but you can talk to them, you can hear from them that they're doing that. So it kind of makes it feel more alive and more vibrant that they're doing it. And one by one, they're being picked off, and it's absolutely terrifying. It's odd because this game, I want it to be over so quickly because it's so terrifying, but I loved it. And the main character says it. He says, "I just want this to be over." And it's I love, again, there's quite a bit of humor, well, not quite a bit, but some humor that they're using that to help themselves. It's a very funny game. There's some really good dialogue in it, some great insults that your boss gives you and people give you,
and some good voice acting as well.
the
And
voice acting is fantastic as well.
genuine Scottish accents, as opposed
like
to what
mine,
you were
isn't it?
doing.
Yeah, you think that? I mean, I can still do it.
No,
No.
but yeah, and I think that really helps set the atmosphere.
And there is subtitles as well. Sorry, Laura.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that helps set the atmosphere and
Absolutely.
and makes you, like, it gives it a sense of place on this kind of lonely oil rig that you're, like you said, you're being kind of pursued, and you've got to work out what's going on, and you build a bit of camaraderie with some of the characters, and yeah.
Yeah, and there, I believe there are two types of subtitles. One like Scottish subtitle, and then the other for like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
For example, like the Weens, like the wee ones, the Wanes. Thank you. Maybe you should do a Scottish accent, Laura.
No, because I know I can't do it. Sure.
Oh, I say I can't. Well, we'll
so
see.
that stops me.
That's never stopped me before.
No, I
So
know.
people telling me I can't do something, that hasn't stopped me. Anyway, so yeah, Still Wakes the Deep. It's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely terrifying. I don't usually like such horror games, but just the setting really appealed to me, and I'm delighted because this was one of my most eagerly anticipated games of 2024, and it more than met my expectations. I would recommend this. It's if that sounds like something that appeals to you, it's Still Wakes the Deep.
I started playing it because of your recommendation, Georgia.
What do you think, Johnny, in your playthrough so far?
Well, I've only played it for about an hour or so, but it's exactly as you say. It's terrifying. You're just afraid to take a next step. You're looking behind your shoulder constantly because you think, yeah, something's coming after me. But I haven't played it after that first session because there I got a little case of motion sickness after a while.
Right.
So I hope it doesn't bother me as much the next time. So I still have to continue it. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what is still going to happen in that story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's as I said, it's really, really good. And I see in the chat, well, Ben Amation, he also says that Still Wakes the Deep is excellent. I loved it, absolutely, thank you. And Joseph Wilk, hello, Joseph. He's hi, folks, long time listener who finally saw my live recording. Well, welcome. I am looking forward to adding to my massive backlog during this listen. Yeah, that's well, when I hear from the rest of the team as well, it happens to me from hearing a review. And I believe Joseph Wilk also says Still Wakes the Deep was a really nice iteration on the genre, poignant ending, which we haven't spoken about. But yeah, I love the ending as well, too, considering the situation we start in. And then Lou P, yeah, hello, Lou P mentioned, I want to watch this on Sky. There's a program called The Rig, which sounds very similar. It's also based in a Scottish oil rig
I
with
saw that.
fog and super. Would you recommend it, Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
season 2, I think, coming out.
Oh, good.
So I really want to watch that as well.
It's
So yeah,
on Amazon Prime for if you don't have Sky.
right, perfect. So that's the Rigged TV series and Still Wakes the Deep. So number 5 then, it's another horror game. Laura, you played this game as well, I believe, didn't you? Of course. Do you want to mention this and talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, or like you can join in as well because it's Crow Country.
Woo!
And I know again, some people will be like, "Hang on a minute, is that really an adventure game?"
In
But
this case, it is.
in this case, it is because you can actually turn off. It is a kind of survival horror game, isn't it? But you can turn off all the kind of combat elements of it because there is actually quite a lot of combat in this. But you can turn it off and just have the adventure side of it. And I believe that's what you did. Is that right,
Yeah,
Shoshi?
that's how I did. Did you play with the combat?
I play with the combat, but yeah,
I'm I'm a wuss, so
I didn't
no.
want to say that.
No,
But
you can say it. It's okay.
no, but I mean, I think it's great that they implemented that because there is actually loads of story and lore and stuff to uncover and lots of puzzles, isn't there?
Yes.
So the setup is it is a survival horror game, but basically you turn up at this abandoned theme park called Crow Country, which was run by someone called Edward Crow. You're looking for this guy, and it becomes a bit clearer why later on. It starts off that you're looking for him because you've been given some kind of mission to find where he is because he's gone missing, and some people want answers. But as you explore the rest of the theme park, it becomes clear, there's other reasons. You've got an ulterior motive. And the park has been overrun by these kind of weird creatures and monsters, which in the adventure version, do they exist at all? Do you see them or do they just not attack you or how does it work?
They're dead already. So you see
Okay.
them lying on the ground. Now you do
Okay.
have also boxes that open and then nothing comes out. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I guess you don't get the guns and things like that. So
you
but
can still get the gun. Sorry,
Oh,
but you
okay.
can still, and the secrets as well.
Okay.
But you just never. You can use them for puzzles, to shoot like the
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough.
things.
Because yeah.
But yeah,
And it's done in this there's quite a trend for this at the moment, the sort of retro style graphics, like the kind of PS1 retro horror graphics that have become quite a big thing at the moment. But it doesn't have the tank controls, which is good. You could still sort of, I think you could switch to that if you want, but why would you? It's still controlled really well. And yeah, basically you're exploring the park. You have to solve all these little puzzles to unlock new areas, and you're reading kind of bits of people's biographies or bits of people's journals to like uncover little bits of clues. And there are loads of really quite clever puzzles, aren't there? Like there's a lot to
absolutely.
solve.
Yeah.
There's a
So
lot.
if you do love, puzzles as well, there are some great puzzles in this game. And
Yeah.
again, you can play this. I mean, the way it was made with combat as a survival horror. But if you don't want the combat, you can just play in exploration mode. Now you can tell that that's not the way the game was made but it works just as well. It's a testament to the quality of the game that it still works really well with everything else, with the exploration, the storyline, the puzzle solving, and exploration, even without the combat. And it's still kind of creepy. I mean, kind of what is it, like a cozy horror then it turns into. That some bad things happen in the game. But I love the character as well. The writing was really good. And another thing I liked is that the other characters, they're kind of, wusses like, like myself. And the main character, Mara Frost, who's this young woman, she's the one who's going into the dangerous places. And she's the one who is saying, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do this. So really good characterization as well. And yeah, it looks and I'd love that it is retro, as you mentioned, but it's not trying to be like those games. There are some modern implements in the game as well, like you mentioned tank controls, but it's still, it looks like a retro game. It feels like a modern game as
Yeah.
well. And it focused on quality. It didn't go, oh, look, this is the way they did this in the 1990s, early 1990s, so it has to be like this. It's like, no, we're going to give the option to play as well. So I do like to have the different options that you can play with combat or without combat. So that's why we've included it as an adventure game, because you can play this as an adventure game. And yeah, again, I would recommend people play it. So if the fact that you don't like survival horror because of combat puts you off, don't worry about this game. You can play that without combat. I'm sure you can as well. So that is Crow Country. And yeah, Matty said as well in the chat that the main character looks a bit like Tifa in Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's
Yeah, definitely.
it's yeah. So that is Crow Country. And now we're getting to the top four. So at number four, Kieran and Laura, you both played this, and Johnny, you played a little bit as well. But
I've
Kieran,
almost finished it, but
did you finish it?
no, not yet, not yet.
Oh, you haven't, but yeah.
But in the final parts.
Oh, perfect. Well, Kieran, what is our number four adventure game of 2024?
Yeah, so this is Rise of the Golden Idol from Coloured Grey Games. It's the sequel to Curse of the Golden Idol, which many people will have played. Very puzzle heavy narrative game. Curse of the Golden Idol, I think, was set in the 19th century. Someone may correct me on that. It concerned the discovery of a powerful idol artifact. And then this sequel is set in the 70s, concerns its rediscovery and a number of crimes surrounding the rediscovery of this artifact. It's sort of Obra Dinn style. Each level appears as a kind of freeze frame. You get a few seconds and you can explore those few seconds sort of frozen in time, and you have to work out what's happening. It's often something dramatic, like there's an explosion, there's chaos, everyone's running around, and you have to click around the scene, and maybe you'll see something like, oh, this thing on the wall says that John is on cleaning duty, and one of the characters is holding cleaning spray, so that's probably John. That's an incredibly boring example. It's much more exciting than that. Characters are killing each other. They're keeping secrets. They're wrestling for power. There's these wonderful aha moments when you realize, oh, this person was misled. They thought this, and so they did this, but actually it meant that happened. There's a few of that, and it always feels really nice when you work out not just the truth of what happened, but sort of why it happened, why someone thought something that was wrong is a really nice part of it. There's a much wider range of what you actually need to puzzle out than either Obra Dinn or the first game. You have to work out sort of corporate hierarchies and the structure of rituals and different beliefs, as well as the classic sort of who people are, what did they do. It's also, I think it's much better balanced than the original. In the original, there's two very easy levels and then a bunch of decent difficulty levels, and then one absolutely just monstrous level which combines everything, and I found pretty overwhelming right at the end. It's still satisfying to solve. This one, there's a lovely combination of, there's these individual levels, and then there's a sort of meta level which combines multiple scenes all at once into this overarching story. And they're all pitched at this perfect puzzle, well, for me at least, this perfect puzzle difficulty, which is both doable but still satisfying to solve. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. There's also a step up. There's a sort of MS Paint style to the original, and this has taken that into, it's still got that MS Paint feeling, but things are animated a bit more. There's a lot more going on. There's lots more detail and polish in each of the scenes. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you want to take over, Laura, and say some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly add, it is basically Case of the Golden Idol, but upgraded a little bit, isn't it? There's more chapters, there's more puzzles, like you said. The art style, there's a bit, and the sound as well. Like some of the backing tracks remind me a bit of Disco Elysium in kind of the synthy way, and I thought that was a really good addition. Even though the sound is also great in Case. But basically, if you love Case, you'll love this. There's lots more to get into. I found it slightly easier than Case, but I think that might be just because there wasn't that big step up, like you said, where in Case it suddenly went wildly difficult and there were all these different areas you had to search. It doesn't quite get to that level, I think, but there are still some pretty tricky bits near the end. And yeah, if you love Case, you'll love this.
No, fantastic. And yeah, Johnny, I know you're playing. That is anything to add, or still haven't finished it?
Well, I found that I enjoy it more when I play it in short sessions. So the game is divided into different chapters, and at first you're so excited when you solve the mystery and you want to continue to the next one, but it's pretty taxing after a while because you need so much concentration to remember things, to figure things out. And if you keep at it for too long, it gets a bit tiring, and that's really a shame because it's a really good game and it deserves it deserves this place in our top 10, definitely. But well, it's easy in some places, it's harder in other places, and sometimes it just helps to take a step back, to leave it for a while and then come back to it later with a fresh head, fresh mind, and continue your investigation. That's my experience with it.
Yes, I think that sounds what I'll be doing whenever if I get the chance to play it, because it sounds like it is taxing, at least for me when I'm not very good at played. I am playing a little bit. I started Case of the Golden Idol and really enjoying it, but yeah, it can be tough. So, and also shout out to Will again, Kimi, friend of the pod, who worked on that game, and he's just announced his new game. He'll be on the podcast.
City of Voices.
Yes, which is very similar. Similar, I think. Again, the deduction, it's kind of near his own genre at this point. But yeah, no, fantastic. The Rise of the Golden Idol is our number 4. Probably would have been higher if more of us had played it, but still good at number 4. And number 3 then, again, Laura and Kieran. You guys played this. Laura, you mentioned this to Kieran. So what is our number 3 adventure game of 2024?
I'll let Kieran Medley speak about this because I feel like it's really a game for him.
It's his game.
It's Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I started playing this and I was like, Kieran's got to play this. This is such a Kieran coded game. And lo and behold, he did, and he really enjoyed it. I think he put it even higher up than I did. I had it in my top 10. But I think, Kieran, was it your second?
I think
favorite?
so, yes.
So yeah, if you want to, I'll add a bit later, but if you want to take it away with your thoughts first of all and a bit of a description of the game.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I think my main recommendation here is if you can get Laura Crest to give you personalized adventure game recommendations, then it really does come with trumps. So this is a third person 3D. I mean, are we allowed to use the word Metroid Brainia?
I love that phrase. I think that's such a good phrase. Metroid Brainia.
Sure. Well, I think we'll claim it now.
Okay, you're exploring this mansion. It's a black and white with some splashes of color in there, maybe almost all red. And the reason why any of this is happening is completely enigmatic. It's not clear at all why you're a woman who is exploring this mansion. It seems to be for some sort of art project. You have an early interaction with the person who seems to be in control of the whole thing, the master of ceremonies, who's talking about an art project and all of this stuff. But there's really just these sort of puzzles that are strewn about, and lots of padlocks. Everything is behind padlocks. that when you first explore the mansion, it's completely unclear. It felt like I was going to get absolutely nowhere. Because I was seeing all of these just random things, and okay, here's a movie poster, here's a bunch of numbers that are apparently don't seem to be connected to anything. Here's a question mark, wonderful. But then once you've done that first layer of exploration, everything slowly, bit by bit, seems to fall into place, and you realize, oh, hang on, this movie poster was about a movie which is referenced here, and there's this number which is underlined nearby. Maybe I try that on the padlock near the movie poster. Oh, now it's opened. And that keeps on happening again and again and again. And there's this sinister vibe to the whole thing, that the apparent blood, the fact that that he's not being forthcoming in why you're even there. It's nicely dark. It's not really a horror, but it's nicely dark and unexplained and artsy and full of all of these puzzles. Yeah, I had a really good time with this. I mean, I've not finished it. I think Laura's actually got further than me in this, so can potentially jump in on some of the stuff that happens in the later game. But yeah, the first few hours, really enjoying.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's such a huge game. I think I'm on, if I just look at where I'm up to now, I've done 19 hours. And I'll be honest, I did look at a walkthrough for some of it, because sometimes the one thing I will say about it is, because it's such an open style, there are set puzzles that kind of make sense that you do end up solving earlier because you get the clues earlier. But because you can just basically explore the whole house, you will do puzzles in a different order, because it's quite open. You open different doors, and you sort of work out different things. So sometimes you find a puzzle that actually you don't have the clues to until much later on. So that is the one thing that I got a little bit confused with sometimes, and I was like, can I solve this now, or is it just that I don't have the means to solve it? But what I did really enjoy about it was that feeling of exploration, like you say, it's just that feeling. And when you do work stuff out, you feel pretty clever, even though I do think most of the puzzles aren't too difficult. They just really require you to, keep an open mind, think of different ways of doing it. And you do have all the material there. That's the main thing. Like, you do have it. But some of them are really clever as well. And yeah, it's just fun, like just wandering around this weird house. And there's so many different ways they've kind of bent it. There's a little bit where you actually go inside a computer game, which is like a sort of retro PS1 style version of the game you are playing. And that's really cool. Yeah, there's just so many different layers to it. The puzzles are all really unique. A lot of it is to do with numbers, but some of it is, kind of spatial, or some of it's to do with zodiacs and things like that. So there's loads of different puzzles. And, once you, like Kieran said, once you start to piece together little bits, it becomes quite exciting. And it does a really good job also of having, noting everything that you found. Otherwise you'd be lost, because there's so many puzzles. It's good that they've made it very systematic. It's really easy to access all the evidence you found. It's really easy. You've got a log of everything that you've done, so you can go back through it, because otherwise I think I'd forget. But it's not, it's quite, I don't know, it's quite obscure, some of the bits, and it is a little bit unusual, the story. It is quite eccentric, isn't it, Kieran? But yeah, I did enjoy the exploration side of it.
Fantastic. So, excuse me. So that is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. It's our number 3 adventure game of 2024. So now we're down to the final 2, and it's so close between these 2 games that there's practically nearly joint number 1, but so close, just marginal difference. But we'll say our number 2 adventure game of the year. I know a few of us have played with Matt and Johnny. You guys in particular have been, I think, raving about this game. Matt, would you like to reveal what is our number 2 adventure game of 2024?
Gladly. The Adventure Game Podcast number 2 game of 2024 is The Crimson Diamond.
Woo! By Julia Minamata.
Yes. Solo developer who's been working on this for, I think the universe was created and she started creating it. Like, she constantly just felt like she's been spending so many years developing this, and has been chronicling its development through streaming and the online community for ages that it eventually felt like it was working towards like a big kind of tentpole event for the indie adventure game genre. So when this finally got released, it felt like one of the year's big stories in terms of the genre. I think perhaps to a level that we last time we saw it was Return of Monkey Island. So I think this is like the closest in. I think the most A-list an indie uh, an indie developed adventure game could be. So if anyone here is not too familiar with the Crimson Diamond is very much influenced and a homage to EGA games, particularly the Colonel's Bequest, which is like one of my favourites, admittedly. You play as Nancy Maple, who's a kind of geologist slash. I think it's like a geologist for a museum who goes to a little fishing village called Crimson to look at some discovered diamonds. And along the way, stuff happens that, without wanting to spoil spoil what the plot go, what happens in the plot, because I think that the less you know about it, the more fulfilling it is. Yes, so you end up kind of investigating things in a very similar way to the first Laura Bow game. It is pretty much text parser based, so you are walking around typing things in as you would with like in the late 80s, early 90s with DAJ. It is pretty much 16 colors throughout, and it is pretty much seen as kind of like a kind of nostalgic throwback, but it has the same mentality that Thimbleweed Park did, where Ron Gilbert was saying that Thimbleweed Park it plays as the memory of what you remember Manic Mansion being. So if you play Thimbleweed Park and then you went to go and play Manic Mansion, I meant to go and play Maniac Mansion. Um, when when I eventually played Maniac Mansion, I found it unplayable because of so many modern develop developments in the genre. Um, Making it things that you're used to make it unplayable. Whereas if you play Thimbleweed Park, it triggers that kind of nostalgic throwback, but it's polished to a point where it's playable in modern times. The Crimson Diamond does that with the EGA text parser, and I'd argue the Colonel's Request has aged quite well in playability, but the way it kind of is easier to play, it's easier to kind of guess what the text parser expects you to think. It feels a lot more rewarding, and it's and it leads you to what I think is kind of the masterstroke of the game, in that if you're approaching this with the nostalgic kind of feeling towards it, you approach the game with a couple of or quite a few expectations of what's going to happen, particularly if you've played the Colonel's Bequest, and the game and the story flips that quite well to the point where it feels quite like a postmodern exploration on the nostalgic experience. And again, I can't really, I really would like to advocate for a spoiler special of the podcast at
Yeah,
some point to talk about the
I
game
Definitely.
in depth, because it's hard to talk about what happens in the game, but a lot of the kind of surprises and twists in the plot and the amount of things that you expect to happen that don't happen, um, like kind of pulls the rug under you, and then pulls the rug under you, and it leads you to pretty much in like the last quarter of the game into a very kind of escalation in the plot, and the pacing increases, and it just works really well. And you'd be surprised that for a game that is a text parser game, the pacing is extremely well done. Particularly if you go and play some of the older games, the pacing doesn't keep up that well. Whereas I think Julia Minoata has managed to somehow take a slow-paced mechanic and made it so that you can pretty much go through it in a few hours and not feel stuck. And I think I think that's like an achievement in itself. And and I think the kind of mainstream kind of non-adventure game media that have picked up on this, I think is truly deserved because of that. So, and that's why it's my number one game of 2024.
Yeah, fantastic. Definitely agree. And Johnny, you played it as well, I believe, didn't you?
Yes, I did, and I loved it as well. But it's hard to add anything that Matt hasn't already said.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with the pacing. It starts off really slow. There's this mansion you can explore, different rooms, and also the grounds outside. And then suddenly things happen, and the game pretty much runs away with you. And then at the end, you have to answer a bunch of questions to make the case, to solve the case, actually. And you'd get a kind of report card on how well you did in your investigation. Because throughout the game, there are lots of little details you have to pick up on, you have to investigate. Really like investigating a crime scene, with taking footprints, taking fingerprints, stuff like that. And the first time I finished the game, my score wasn't all that good, I have to be honest, because suddenly they started asking questions about things I had no idea were actually part of the game. So when it comes to replayability, I think the first time you go through it, there are things you are going to miss, because it's so hard to keep everything together, to keep track of everything. Because I remember when I played The Colonel's Bequest, I had a similar experience, but it was even worse there because, well, it's an older game, and the Crimson Diamond has very much taken the concept of The Colonel's Bequest and modernized it, and has elevated it. Also, technically, has made it into a far better experience now. But for The Colonel's Bequest, I actually created a spreadsheet to keep track of everything and all the characters in the game, to see who was where and did what. And I started doing that for the Crimson Diamond as well, because I was a bit scared it was going to go in the same direction. But after a while, I stopped doing that because it wasn't necessary. It's far easier to keep everything in your head, but it's still difficult to pick up on everything. So after the first time you play through it, because you have to answer those questions, you will know, you have some clues on where to go and what to do as well. And then the second time you play through, you can pick up on those things and get a much better score. And that was really fun, trying to improve yourself on that score. And it's really amazing, all the details that Julia put into this game, and indeed made it a lot more fun game than the Colonel's Bequest was, in my opinion.
Keeping a spreadsheet with clues is way up there with drawing your own map on old school adventure gaming. That is awesome.
I think for the Colonel's Bequest, I think the Colonel's Bequest feels a lot more ahead of its time than I think some games. Myself and Saoirse had talked about it on Ask Us About Loom a couple of years ago, and we was quite surprised that, I mean, how much it's still played quite well. I think there's a couple of dated parts of it that don't make it, that we couldn't niggle out. But I think there's a decent base in the Colonel's Bequest to build on. And I was surprised it's taken about nearly 20, 30 plus years for it to happen. But my final thing about it for I think there's other people that played it as well, is that I think, going back to Julia, I think like there are kind of personalities and figures in the kind of indie adventure game genre that are really good ambassadors for the positive parts of the community. And I think the release of this has pretty much cemented Julia as another one of those kind of like future Hall of Famers, I think. Not only because of the game, but because of the because of the stewardship of her like love for the genre. I mean, like, as I'm starting to mess around with Adventure Game Studio, and when I started looking at tutorials, she's got a load of videos that I've been using as well, just to help create stuff and mess around with the software. So yeah, I think it's a real good achievement, not just for the game, but for herself as well.
Also, the text parser mechanic, it really it makes you think what it is you actually want to do, because in recent years the user interface of adventure games has pretty much been simplified. We came from the text parsers in the 80s, and the verb system with the Lucasfilm and LucasArts games. But these days, when a new adventure game comes out, it's usually a one-click interface, and you can't really do anything wrong. You have to click on everything, and then usually the solution presents itself, other than combining inventory items and stuff like that. But with the text parser here, you really have to think harder on what it is you want to achieve. You have to actually look at everything there is to see in a location, and you have to figure out, okay, that object, what is it? What can it be called? But also Julia has incorporated the text parser system that really picks up on a lot of different variations of nouns and verbs. And you could even type in just a bunch of letters, and each letter being the abbreviation of a verb or a noun or stuff like that. And that's actually quite amazing how she put all that together.
So the options are a lot bigger than they used to be in those EGA text parsers back in the day. Because some of the frustrating things about, well, not just those text parsers, but also the text adventures that came before them, is basically that you were typing, but there was like only 20 verbs that you could use in total, even though you were trying to do different things. And I get from what you're telling me, I get the impression that this text parser is a lot more complicated and allows for a way more detailed exploration of the language in the game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastic. So that is a Crimson Diamond. And yes, Julie Minamata, she was on this podcast a few years ago, and I've met her a few times at Adventure X and all. She's a lovely, lovely person as well. So I'm delighted that the game is great. And yeah, Joseph Wilkes said this game is such a labor of love, not just for the genre, but for its players. And I agree with that. I think, she's definitely wants to make this as good experience as possible for the players, and very replayable, because I didn't get everything the first time either, so if you get a chance, look forward to replaying it. But it's fantastic, and it's so close to being number one. It probably any other year would have been, but there is one other game. We have about 10ish minutes left to talk about. So our number one adventure game of the year. Who wants to reveal this? Do you want to all of us? So do you want to drum roll?
All right.
So,
oh God.
Well, if it's gonna go as well as we used to be the clapping, then
So we say 3, 2, 1, and then we say it.
yes. So 3,
2,
2,
1.
1.
Locomotive. And we have a short video from one of the developers of Locomotive as well, from Adam Ritchie. So here is a video. Please enjoy.
Hello, Adam here from Robust Games. I just wanted to say a big thank you for Locomotive being awarded Adventure Game of the Year by Adventure Game Podcast. We're really humbled. We've been so excited and thrilled for the response that we've seen for Locomotive so far. We want to just send a huge thank you to everyone that supported us, played the game, left a review on Steam, told a friend. As a small indie team, we rely so much on word of mouth, so we just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's been there for us since launch. Thank you.
No, and thank you, Adam, for sending us in that video. So who wants to talk about this game? Because this is, I think, other people's adventure game of the year as well. So
let me begin, because I have not entirely finished it yet, but I played it long enough to really
perfect.
know that this was.
Thomas, take us away. All aboard Rice Express. Why should we get on board Locomotive?
Well, it looks fantastic. It's gorgeous pixel art. It's very funny. I noticed that as well. It's also got a protagonist that you would not like. It's a lawyer. Generally, people would not like to play lawyers, but he's also a very nerdy lawyer. Like he's just getting very enthusiastic about someone who says he's an accountant, and then he starts asking accountant questions. Like that kind of silly humor is in there. But even though it's very it's very funny, the story itself is very well done. So it's complicated, it's challenging, and it looks great. And what I also noticed is that it's very detailed in, for instance, the animations. Like every time he puts something in his inventory or takes it out, it has its own animation. It's not the cookie cutter stuff. So I was very, very impressed. And finally, the voice acting is also spot on in this game. So yeah. And from what I've heard of, what you told me is that the final act, which I have not reached yet, but I'm on my way, is just fantastic. So that made me confident to put it on the top of my list.
Yeah, no, well, I look forward to hearing your talk because the final section, I think it is fantastic. And again, I won't give anything away, but it's, yeah, with the interactions with that as well. Anybody else want to talk about this game? Kieran, I know you reviewed it, but
Yeah, what
anything to add to what Thomas said?
Yeah, what Thomas was saying about it nothing being cookie cutter. I was just amazed by this as I played the game. There's a notable thing from Monkey Island 2, I think, where you pick up the dog and you get a little custom animation of him putting the dog in his. It's just funny. It's just fun, a fun little personal animation. There's that for everything. Almost every item you get its own custom animation. There's constantly little things that are happening in the backgrounds, on the sides. There's a bit where there's some musicians who are sitting around playing cards, and you don't play cards with them, but as you're doing other things in that scene, they're just off to the side. They're going shh, and there's this lovely animation of shuffling the cards, of dealing out the cards, of someone celebrating and taking in the winnings. These tiny little animations are just everywhere. It's such a polished game. It really is amazing to look at and fun to look at. Every new scene has something going on. Any interaction, any action you take has something little new thing that happens that just rewards you. It's just
makes the world feel alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. That's a really, really good way of putting it. No one feels like they're necessarily just waiting around for you to talk to them. You can talk to the bartender, but if you're not talking to the bartender, they'll be there shaking, mixing up drinks, turning around, slicing things. It's wonderful for that.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else got anything to add, Laura?
Yeah, this is my top, and I think it's what people have been saying. It's the variety, because I think it's fair to say you don't just play as one character the whole way through. That gets shaken up as well. And I think when you were first playing it, when you've got to that point of you've played as the first character, you're kind of like, well, what more is there to say there? But what's really cool is you go back as another character from a different perspective, and then some of the things that weren't quite tied up in the first with the first character, that gets tied up a little bit, and then there's another character, and the ending few chapters, there's a lot of interesting switching between them. It's really, really clever. It sort of doesn't really let up until the end. It keeps surprising you with different little twists in the plot and also the gameplay, and yeah, it just looks great. It's great. This came from a Game Jam game quite a few years ago, and then the guys just decided to make it into a full thing because they just loved it so much. And you can just see, like, they just had the idea from the beginning and they just kind of went with it. It's it is set in this one train, but for the most part anyway. But what's great is that lots of things keep changing. It's kind of what Kieran was saying. They could easily have just gotten away with just doing this quite static, train and just reuse the same scenes. But each time, little things are changing as you sort of influence things with puzzles. And in a way, it is a traditional point and click adventure game, but I feel like it feels very modern, and it feels very new in the sense just of all these little extra things that they've added to make
bigger
it really
as
good.
well.
Yeah, much bigger. I can't remember how long it took me, but there's a decent few hours that you'll spend playing it. Yeah.
Yeah, but also the world, like it's all set in the same train, but it's a big train. Like different areas open up. Like in the first bit, you only have access to these areas, but then in the second bit, all of a sudden new areas come are added to that. Because now you don't skip them, you just walk, you go through them. Album Maker said, but it just makes this potentially very small area, very small world, very big and very alive.
And there's lots of little fun sort of secret bits as well, and it doesn't rely on harking back to kind of, which it could so easily have done, just doing loads of in jokes about, Monkey Island and things like that. It doesn't need that. It's funny in its own right, and it's still got these little in jokes, but it sort of relies. I mean, there was one crazy in joke about that I've mentioned to the guys about the Orson Welles champagne ad, which I was like, what? There's a character if anyone's seen the hilarious Orson Welles Paul Masson champagne, where basically Orson Welles is really drunk and he's doing this champagne advert and he can't speak properly. And there's a whole character based on that, which is wild. I was like, this is so funny. But if you don't have to know that in joke.
Yeah, I still thought it was funny without understanding the reference until you told us. I was like, oh.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe this, because I love that. It's literally just a little viral video on YouTube. But I was like, this is so funny. They've based an entire character on this. But yeah, there's loads of little fun stuff to uncover. I probably missed loads of it.
Yeah, myself as well. Sorry, Kieran. Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, Matt. Did you play this game as well?
Yes. I've still not reached the end of it, but it's still, I think, amazing. I think it's my second favorite. And I'm just going to briefly talk more about the characters, and I think the UI as well. I think the characters are brilliant. I absolutely adore Herman. I think
Herman Tootrot.
Herman Merman.
No, that's Tootrot. My God, what am I?
Wrong franchise. But which is
wrong franchise, yes.
Yeah, Herman Merman, which I think is either a deliberate or inadvertent reference to the rural juror from 30 Rock. Herman Merman and the suburban Merman or something like that. But all the playable characters have got man at the end of their surnames. But I quite like the fact that they're kind of flawed adventure game protagonists, but they're not unlikable. The fact they're actually quite likable, which is and lovable in places. I think Arthur Ackerman, the first one you play, he's just kind of salt of the earth, just nice, and just starts drooling at the thought of paperwork. There's an there's a brilliant character gag where he suddenly you find all this paper, and any other adventure game protagonist would have moaned, and he suddenly just looks like he's just found jackpot and goes paperwork. But as well, and I think interestingly, as Johnny was talking about the Crimson Diamonds UI, about how making you think and stuff, this is actually quite simplified. It's actually, I think it's either is or influenced by the UI that the Return of Monkey Island used, where it's you either have the left or the right mouse click, and it changes the context of how you do stuff. And sometimes you don't even right mouse click, you just left mouse click just to look at something or anything. And I quite like that aspect of Return to Monkey Island, because of just how easy it is and how much it opens up for the more casual non-adventure game fans, or normal people, as we say. Normies, the normies. But and I think it opens it up for just for an easier access for mainstream playing. And I think at the moment it is only on. No, it's actually on Switch, yeah. So it probably makes it easier to use on Switch as well. The fact that you can fast travel by just holding and dragging the mouse around, I think, is really great. And I am envious at just how the dialogue looks, to the point where I've been trying to see if I can copy how to do the transparent background when I've been messing around with adventure game. I just love that kind of the transparent background over behind text, the dialogue and stuff. I think it's just a nice kind of touch, and the cat, just the way the UI looks, it just looks so clean, so fresh, pristine, all in nice HD. And yeah, I'm just going to repeat a load of stuff with the animations as well. It works really well with the higher definition kind of visualizations of the characters, and yeah, I can't think of anything else to say about it that hasn't been said.
Yeah, no, well, congratulations. Sorry, Kieran, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say. So a lot of the time we say something like, "Oh, if you like sci-fi, you'll like this," or if you like puzzles, you'll like this game. With Locomotive, I think it's impossible to imagine someone who likes adventure games but doesn't like Locomotive. I think anyone that's listens to this podcast that has any interest in adventure games is going to enjoy their time with Locomotive. I think everyone should check it out.
There are aspects that will tick to loads of other people, like loads of boxes.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of like 1920s murder mysteries with their Belgian detective whose surname I keep mispronouncing, so I'm not going to I'm not going to try to
Monsieur Poirot.
yes. I have routinely mispronounced his surname on multiple podcasts, so I'm not going to embarrass. I'm not going to embarrass myself by adding this podcast to another one.
Well,
yeah,
that never stops me from, embarrassing myself. So.
Hercule. Yeah, Hercule. I'll just mention Hercule. Yeah, I think that kind of like set on a train, Agatha Christie style kind of.
It's like Last
setup.
Express too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Last Express. Yeah. It's just it'll tick like all those boxes for a load of different people, and yeah, I think it's very well deserved number one for us. I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the final thing that I would say is I think what this shows is, as you mentioned, Laura, we all mentioned it's inspired by adventure games of old, but it doesn't rely on referencing them. It's its own thing. You don't need to have played Monkey Island or Broken Sword or any of these games to enjoy this game. And I think that's one of the great things about it. So the final thing I would say to any adventure game developers watching or listening is, of course, if you're making an adventure game, don't rely on references to other games for your game. Have more confidence in your own ability, in your own game. Because I think actually we've got to the stage where references take away from the game. That, have confidence in yourselves, in your own games, in your own ability to write dialogue and make games as well. Because we've seen first-time developers and how great, okay, the Crimson Diamond very clearly inspired by Colonel's Bequest, and there's some references, but it's its own thing as well. You don't need to have played a Colonel's Bequest. And the same with this game, Locomotive. The developer said it's Monkey Island meets Agatha Christie, but you don't need to have read any Agatha Christie. You don't need to play Monkey Island to enjoy this. I think, of course, we'll really enjoy it, but anyone new coming in to the genre who's never played an adventure game, I think will probably enjoy it as well. So
I think with that there's again a whole conversation that could spin off that we don't have time for. But I think the aim is to be the next adventure game that adventure game fans start referencing. So rather
than reference your games.
Yeah. So rather than like saying, "Oh, ideally you want to be the game that adds to everyone referencing Monkey Island." Whenever everyone puts a Max Head in the game, you want someone to like stick an Arthur Ackerman reference something, or you want a Nancy Maple reference. I think that's the aim. I think rather than to just mention like, oh, fine leather jackets or like another Goat Puzzle reference or something. You want to be the next big game.
When they referenced those fine leather jackets in the latest Indiana Jones games, I was like, wow.
Well, I think we'll allow Indiana Jones because it is Indiana Jones who says it. So
yes.
So I think we can make allowances for that. But yeah. So congratulations to Robust Games and Adam and Joseph Ritchie and the team there. There's the #1 adventure game, Locomotive. And again, I would say congratulations to anyone who has released an adventure game last year, because as you mentioned with Atta, it's a difficult time for game studios, for games as a whole, just in general, and it's very, very tough. So anyone who releases an adventure game, huge congrats, because you don't do it for the money. You do it for the passion that you have. And if we didn't get a chance to mention your game, it's probably because we didn't get a chance to play it, or only one of us played. There's still a number of games, big name games that I played at least. We didn't get to mention Harold Halibut, Life is Strange, that I really enjoyed, and several others, but just so many. So huge congratulations to any one developer who has released an adventure game in 2024. And
I just had a quick look. Our combined list overall between
how many games
were
there?
There was 33.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. We've had 33 games that we've played
between 6 of us.
We've managed to put it down to 10. So,
yeah.
But no, thank you everyone who still makes adventure games.
Well,
sorry, Thomas.
Yeah, well, for me, it's been a tough year because I've barely been able to play anything. So my New Year's resolution is to play more games and get back to get back into it, so we can have an even more evened out list at the end. But it does goes to show that it was a very, very good year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, we missed you last year, Thomas. We hope to have you again. But of course, enjoy yourself. Life comes first, of course. Sometimes we just don't have time. So yeah, so also Robust Games are in the chat. Hello, Adam and Joseph Ricci, to say thank you so much and big congrats to all the games on this list. What a year for adventure games. Absolutely. I mean, it's been nearly hell for nearly every other genre. If you go to mainstream websites to say, oh, video games are dying, whatever. But adventure games, as we've just discussed, it's been fantastic. There's some games we didn't get to mention. Grundislav says, I have to give a shout out to Death of the Reprobate, which I haven't had a chance to play. I've heard nothing but good things about that game as well. It was hilarious. I played a demo at Adventure X and very, very, very funny. As well. And before anybody wants to say anything very, very quickly, or before?
Yes. So yeah, I just noticed that Death of the Reprobate. So I am so that yes, there's a huge number of games in 2024 which are excellent. Yeah. I'm going to be recording a 10 more games that you should check out from 2024. That will be nice. on the for Patreon backers. And that does also include Death of the Reprobate and 9 more games, which were also really, really worth playing from 2024.
No, thank you for that, Kieran. Yes, I look forward to hearing about it because yes, I still need to play Death of the Reprobate as well, and I'm still playing want to play the Holy Gosh Darn and just so many other games that. Inspector Waffles early days as well I really enjoyed from Jan from Goloso Games, so I'm sure we'll talk more about so I'll be reviewing Inspector Waffles early days, the new Life is Strange game, and the VR adventure game of the year, Retropolis 2 in more detail in our next upcoming regular review episode. Very quickly, before we finish up, who has it? Ben Animation says, what 2025 games are you looking forward to? Now, this could be a whole other podcast we could do, so
maybe we should push that to the next to the next one.
Yes, we could.
I think we can very quickly.
Does anybody want to say very quickly one game each? We can say one game each.
Old Skies.
Okay, Matt, you said Old Skies.
Rosewater. I'm going to jump in.
Okay. I really feel like we should nearly say not those games. Everyone. Okay, yeah, so Old Skies, next game from Dave Gilbert, Wajidai, Rosewater from Grundislav Games.
Perfect Tide Station to Station.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Did you play the first one?
Yeah.
The Hair of the Dog, I think, out this year.
Yes.
Johnny.
Verlight, No Time to Trip.
Oh, yes.
The developers was Willie Morgan, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Well, I'm going to say Catty Rain 2. These are just 6. And all point-and-click adventure games.
They're all brilliant.
We don't know if they'll all be out in 2025, to be fair, with the summer.
We hope they will, yeah.
And also, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Death on the Nile, the new Agatha Christie game from the developers of Murder on the Orient Express. Looking forward to that. But we might do something in more detail as well, even though we're already nearly at the end of January, well, midway through January. But yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, everyone from who's joined us live. Also, Robust Games says Rosewater. Yes, and The Drifter. Yes, The Drifter is another game hopefully coming out. So thank you. Thank you for your Patreon. We are on Patreon if people enjoyed this and you can help us. Again, no pressure, but we will have, as Kieran mentioned, 10 more games. I'll also put some probably my top 10, my personal top 10, going into more detail about those as well.
No pressure. No pressure, but give us your money.
Yes, please do. No. We will come free. No, it's okay. But we do really appreciate all the Patreon subscribers. Too many to mention here now. I also would think of doing extra reviews because there's some games that I haven't had a chance to review in the regular review episodes. So I might do something extra like that. Excuse me. But yeah, thank you to Patreon. But we will have regular episodes out. We'll try and do more maybe YouTube content as well. But we do have a podcast, Adventure Games Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts on Spotify and Apple and just anywhere. We do have regular review episodes. We have interviews and a lot of interviews coming up, as I mentioned, with Evan Jones, developer of the VR adventure game, interviews with Kimmy about his new upcoming game. And others as well that I hope to have as well. I hope to have Francisco Gonzalez on the podcast about Rosewater. Keep an eye out as well. He'll be about to reveal the release date of Rosewater, so looking forward to it, and much, much more. You guys also have a few things. So Johnny, you have something. Where can people find you? You have something else that you do as well.
Yes, I have my personal blog, The Point and Clicker, on Blogspot. So I do regular playthroughs of both new games as well as classic games. And of course, I also link to my Adventure Game Hotspot reviews there. So you can find me there.
Yeah, and shout out to the Adventure Game Hotspot, who do fantastic work as well, Joshua and Jack and the entire team there. And shout
We should
out
do a
to
crossover
them.
episode once, if that's possible.
Yeah, we should do it sometime with them, because they're lovely guys as well. Kieran, can people find you anywhere or what?
No, on the podcast.
Yeah, we're part of this podcast. We can listen to you from this podcast. Yes. Well, Laura, you have your own also. You have your own channel that's doing very well.
It's doing all right. Yeah, I mean, I guess Twitch. I'm just Cressup on Twitch or Cressup on YouTube, and I chat to up and coming sort of developers, a bit like what's done on the podcast, really. So yeah, check me out on there. I'm sure I'm putting up something with Kinney actually, Will, about his City of Voices thing. So that'll be up soon.
No, fantastic. And Thomas, I know you're part of this podcast as well.
Yeah, you can find me here on this podcast, and sometimes you can also find me on the Gaming Outsider, which
Yes.
is more generic sounds so negative, but
No,
they
no.
discuss they discuss games in general. Also, a great fun podcast to listen to. And I occasionally get to contribute about adventure games. And the next adventure game I will be talking about will be called Rama's Call: Twisted Timing.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, no, it's
just reviewed
Gaming
that one.
Outsider.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, lovely guys as well, Scott and CB and Zach and Alyssa as well. I'm just listening to their podcast now, their latest one, their games of the year. But yeah, really recommend that podcast as well. And Matt, where can you tell me about Loom?
Well, if I start talking about all the podcasts I'm involved in, we probably won't be here. We might as well just stay and do the best of 2025 at that point. Yes, Ask Us About Loom is a podcast where I interview people about specific games that they want to talk about. I have new content eventually finally coming out. So I've got an episode on Dark Knights with Paul Monroe with Claire Morwood coming out at the end of January. I have an episode on the Adventures of Willie Beamish with Johnny.
Ooh.
Johnny, that's due out in February, and I've got other ones planned throughout the year, including one with Laura, talking about Beneath Steel Sky, which I can't wait. Can't wait to talk about.
I know.
Kieran, when did you get an invitation for that? Did you get one? I didn't either.
To be fair, with mine, it's been about a year where I've I've failed to organise a date. So.
I guess mine got lost in the email.
To be fair, Matt just put it in the WhatsApp group, so you know.
I know. I'm just messing with
fair.
Thomas stirring there.
I'm just assuming that Kieran's still trying to figure out what game that he's played out of the It's probably easy for him
Probably
to
all
list
of
which
them.
games he hasn't played. But yeah, there's that. If anyone's ever interested in music, I have a music podcast called Pick a Disc, which is a Freudian slip waiting to happen, where I talk about albums with a bunch of guests, which is fortnightly, and that's been fortnightly for it's entering its 7th year. I'm also involved.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm also involved in a podcast about the BBC sitcom Red Dwarf called Shipwrecked and Comatose. We've just covered all the series. We're about to start doing a minute-by-minute podcast on The Promised Land, which was the 90-minute one on that. That's going to be out later in this end of February, early March. But that's just me and a few other friends of mine. And that is pretty much it from me. I'm gonna stop.
Well, thank you.
Podcast,
So how many Mets are there? Because there was no way that you could do all that by yourself.
There's about 15 at the moment.
Okay.
But
Oh,
the
well.
cloning machines stop working and they keep dying, so I'm gonna have to.
Well, thank you so much. You can check us out for more of this podcast as well. And again, a few other games. Legends of Castile coming out, yes, and a new game from Postmodern Adventures. We'd love to have him on the podcast as well. Mezek Tet as well from the developer of Legend of Sky, another game I need to play. And the Silent Sky Part 2. Hopefully coming out from Kappa Tube as well. And then Polyteddy Games said they'll have more news on The Crown's Shadow coming very soon as well. So thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you to the 5 of you guys. Look forward to chatting to you guys as well and hopefully meeting you guys as well. There's I believe someone's having a stag party this year, so or some sort of meetup anyway.
It's going to be in Amsterdam.
It could be. Be happy to do that. So yeah, so look, I think we better finish. We've been here for over 2 hours. Thank you so much to everyone again, and we'll talk to everyone very, very soon. And Happy New Year to everyone. And yeah, Thomas, bring us out.
Keep on questing.
No.